Fantrax Fantasy Football Mailbag episode heading into Week 5. Let's get it. Is this the last chance to sell high on Puka Nacua? So Puka Nacua has been amazing this season. He's wide receiver 4 for fantasy football. Number 1 in targets with 52. Number 1 in receptions with 39. Number 2 in receiving yards with 501. If you want to pause this, my buddy Dalton Cates outlines how great Puka Nacua has been and where he ranks all time through his start. So the fear here is that Cooper Kupp comes back, takes the primary role in the offense. Puka Nacua takes a secondary role, and that his value drops. I do want to point out, though, that Tutu Atwell, the team's wide receiver 2 right now, is tied for number 12 in targets. That's a good sign. There's plenty of volume with the Rams. So if you do want to sell, if you think that Puka Nacua is at his peak right now, sell extremely high. Make somebody pay up. Make somebody give you pieces that fill your starting lineup. Not just give you depth, fill your starting lineup. Otherwise, I'm not selling for an even trade or selling for the low here. I think that Cooper Kupp is going to be great, right, if he's healthy, but he's been banged up the last 2 seasons. There's a chance that he is banged up again, and we hope he stays healthy, but it's a possibility. We don't always have to live in fear in fantasy football. Sometimes we ride the hot hand. Sometimes we say, hey, I got Puka Nacua off of waivers or late in drafts, and he's going to help me the rest of the year. Maybe not to the extent he is right now, but he's still going to be flex-worthy at least the rest of the season. Is Darnell Washington worth the pickup in the wake of the Muth injury? So Pat Freiermuth suffering an injury, Darnell Washington being the 3rd-round draft pick by the Steelers out of Georgia. I will say Darnell Washington is an absolute monster of a man, 6'7", 264. And you might look and say, hey, the Steelers like Pat Freiermuth. They like targeting the tight end. Pat Freiermuth had 98 targets in 16 games last year. And Pat Freiermuth has been getting targets in the end zone, and Washington's a monster of a man. But in 3 seasons at Georgia, Washington had 45 catches and 3 touchdowns. If we want to look at Pat Freiermuth, his teammate, his sophomore year at Penn State, he had 43 catches alone, 2 less than Washington's career. So he's not this big pass-catching tight end. He's not profiled that way. He's a great blocker, big body guy. Can he be a red zone target? Absolutely. But when it comes to the tight end position, I'd rather look to stream guys that can see 5 to 7 targets weekly. I don't want to chase touchdowns, and I think when it comes to Washington, you are hoping that one of his maybe 2 targets is a touchdown and that he catches it. So I'd pivot elsewhere in all honesty. Any backup or just low usage running backs that you think could break out this week? So I want to mention Breece Hall. You might not look at as a backup, but I look at as a low usage running back. The first 4 weeks, he's had 11, 6, 13, and 7 total touches. That's not good usage. Much of this has been game script for the Jets. Hall had 127 rushing yards in week 1. Nothing special after that. Many will reference this Denver matchup being the matchup that he tore his ACL in last year when he had 4 rushing attempts for 72 yards and a touchdown. He was off to having a massive week and unfortunately tore his ACL against the Broncos, who he plays in Week 5. The same Denver Broncos who allow the most fantasy points per game to running backs by a lot. So I think the matchup can actually mean more running back touches for the Jets this week. And Breece Hall has played 49% and 44% of the snaps the last 2 games in comparison to Dalvin Cook's 25% and 25%. So this could be a big week for Breece Hall. Next year, does the tight end board go like this for redraft? Kelsey, Andrews, Laporta? So I think that is a true possibility. And I think many people will say, hey, how does this order end up between these 3 guys? I think important factors here are going to be a few things. I think with the Ravens, does Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, when he's healthy through the season, end up taking away from Mark Andrews? Because we've seen very good things out of Zay Flowers, right? Travis Kelce hasn't had the best start to the season. He did miss a week, but do we see a decline in his play to where he's not this massive cheat code throughout the rest of the season. I do think he's going to be great the rest of the year and the number one target for Patrick Mahomes, but do we see some sort of a decline? Good things out of Sam Laporta. He had 11 target week. He's had games of 63 and 84 receiving yards, a huge 22.4 fantasy outing in week 3. And we're looking at, 22-year-old Sam Laporta, 28-year-old Mark Andrews, 33-year-old Travis Kelce. So in Dynasty, if these guys all are balling out this season, I can see people getting spicy and saying, hey, I want the young guy, right? I think this is a redraft question, though. Another factor can be the impact of Jameson Williams for Sam Laporta, who returns this week. So a lot of things still left to see. I think this is realistic in redraft for these three to be the first three off the board, especially just looking at the inconsistency of the tight end landscape. And all we want for the tight end position is somebody who has a consistent role week in and week out, which fluctuates just so much. What is a realistic trade deal for Jonathan Taylor right now? So I'm going to say that this is a redraft question, and you want to target Jonathan Taylor. You want to take that shot that he returns to action, and he is the Jonathan Taylor we all know and loved from the past. I think you can use some guys that have been hot that we don't necessarily know if they're going to stay hot the rest of the year to go and grab Jonathan Taylor and take that chance, which could be risky due to the situation. But guys like Puka Nacua, who we mentioned earlier, Nico Collins, Mike Evans, Kyron Williams, these are guys that we did not expect to be hot that are hot right now for fantasy football. So if you have one of those guys, maybe you start with them and say, hey, how do I get from them to Jonathan Taylor? That's what I would do. Be sure to toss us your questions for next week, and be sure as well to follow the Fantrax socials for consistent fantasy football content with the intent to help you guys win.